Big tuna, ladies and gentlemen. Or as I guess his professional name is, he goes by Dan Schmaelzle during the day. Is it Schmaelzle?
Yes, my professional and my birth name. Schmaelzle, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, you got it perfect.
I used to on purpose mess it up every single day I saw him, so I just had to confirm. Schmitzels, pretzels, because it doesn't sound.
Anything German sounding.
Yeah, it doesn't sound the way it's spelt at all, because there's just a couple CHs and a Z in there, and we figure it out.
It's very harsh looking, but it kind of rolls off the tongue if you
and
give
here,
it a
try
shot.
to make sure this is like a fist away, just to set up, and we're live there. Cool. Yeah, the only thing we're missing here is 20 pieces of sushi and Sean Van Zant. Shout out to
That's
Sean
right.
Van Zant.
Missed you, buddy.
I know. I can't wait to see him.
Sushi.
He's really stoked to come on too, and he'll probably be on sooner than later. But yeah, man.
So it's
been a long time.
It's been a long time, and it's an honor to be here because
It's an honor to have you, man.
Well, like not only I get to cross something off a bucket list here.
Yeah,
like,
you've always wanted to be on a
serious item.
podcast?
Dude, it's like this is amazing. Like who gets an opportunity to do this?
That's true. That's true. It is fun, man. I've really been enjoying it myself as well.
Yeah. Well, I get to do it with a good friend too,
Yeah.
so it makes it even better.
Double good. But yeah, so here's the thing. It's been a big year because of how much has changed, and it's funny because the last time I saw you, we were planning on a bachelor party.
Yeah.
And all that just kind of goes out the window all of a sudden.
Mm-hmm.
Sean as well, right? I mean, he had something planned. Was it for this year or next year? Do you remember?
I think they were trying to figure it out, so nothing's set in date. But
Yeah. All right. Well, I look forward to seeing everybody down the road.
Yeah, absolutely. I know. Who can believe that we were sitting in a restaurant 2 feet away from each other without a mask on?
Without a mask on. Crazy world. We were living in a crazy, savage, barbaric world back then. I think we even shook hands and all that. So.
Yeah. Hugged it out, maybe.
Hugged it out. Maybe I washed my hands. Who knows? It's all right if we didn't. But yeah, no, the really big emphasis here, and what I really kind of wanted to get in with you, because it's sort of an elephant in the room, and in the time that I had worked with you, we knew each other from being personal trainers at the same gym for maybe a year or two together.
That's right.
I mean, pretty much 2 years, because I was there for 2 years, and you kind of just stuck with it, even though you were in school and then became a nurse. So that's the big focus here, because there's really no subtle way to put this. You're one of the heroes out there. You know what I mean? You're in the front line. You're the cannon fodder of this whole thing in a sense, because you had to just deal with it and put your head to the grindstone for essentially. So, what was that like? I mean, that must have been a crazy 3 months.
Yeah, dude. So it all, I mean, it was unraveling. Like we could see it kind of snowballing in February, and we just, you don't think it's going to happen here. And I'd say most people didn't think it was ever going to turn into anything, quite like it has. But, I mean, just one day in March, it just like, boom.
Yeah, I remember.
It became real. It was like just beginning of the second week, I think. And we're like, okay, this is like coming from the West Coast. It's growing over there. I mean, you could expect it maybe in like LA or something. Everyone's so close together, but then it just travels across the country like within like a couple of days, and it starts taking over. And this thing is like an ambush predator. It's like a lion. It just takes over, but it doesn't relent. It just
doesn't kind of like
No, it persists.
Jeez.
And it's really difficult to snuff it out. So we were following guidelines from the CDC and doing everything that we could to stay on top of policies and procedures, which were changing. Our shifts are 12 hours long, and those things would change like 3 to 4 times a day sometimes. And they would come give us updates and on the fly, and then we got to follow by those new rules. And sometimes they're pretty drastic. But dude, like, we're terrified.
Yeah, I was going to say, what hospital are you working at?
Hartford Hospital.
Okay.
So I'm on a med-surg floor, which is kind of innately stressful to begin with in a city. And you see just a little bit of everything.
Right.
But we had our we were the first place to get a COVID positive patient in Connecticut.
No kidding.
And it was on our floor. And, it goes to like one one specific nurse, and you're looking at them, you're
Yeah.
just like, how are you like handling this right now?
Right.
And not freaking out. And, they're like in talks with like
Mhm.
infectious disease and everything. And it's just like everyone's hush hush and you're trying to go about your day, but it's just really intriguing. And then within a couple of days, the entire floor was filled with people.
No kidding. And you think it was from that first one? I mean, how does it spread? Is it similar to like the cold or the flu in a sense?
It's like the flu.
Yeah.
So it's called it's spread by droplet.
Gotcha.
So that's why like a surgical mask works.
Or like a cloth.
Or cloth. Yep. So it's all measured in like these measurement of microns and whatever. But whatever.
Well, yeah, that was the thing that I was a little at first kind of skeptical about, because I realized like the N95 masks don't really block like viruses passing through airborne. But I understand now that the masks are more for as a preventative measure from people's spit essentially,
exactly,
like talking or just maybe coughing without knowing you coughed, or opening your mouth in general.
When you talk, you get these little like micro droplets that will just blast all over the place. Or you sneeze.
Yeah.
Those things
Okay.
come
So
out.
for those of you who haven't seen a slow motion sneeze, it is actually pretty insane. Like you can go on YouTube and probably just Google or YouTube a sneeze. I don't know. There was a commercial. I don't remember. I don't know when it was, but it was like dogs and humans sneezing, and it was just like, it's crazy how much just spit and shit comes out of your mouth and your nose in one pull.
It's violent and disgusting, and it goes out 60 miles an hour.
How did we make it this far?
It covers 100 feet in in a second.
Yeah.
So the surgical masks will protect against that. N95 you don't really need unless someone's on like a respirator or like a CPAP machine because they have sleep apnea or something like that. So it just makes it, turns it into a gas, and that's what N95 is good for. So dude, we had a gown up. We got to put on gown. We got to put on gloves. We got a double glove. We put on the N95. We put on a surgical, even though the N95 wasn't totally necessary. They were just like more the better. And then a face shield.
Did you guys ever use like M99s or 100s at all, or?
No. It didn't seem like it was that necessary. But in the beginning, we didn't know that much about it.
Right.
So we're like, why shouldn't we do the most?
Right. Hazmat suit.
And then learn.
Yeah.
Right. You see people in like Italy, and they're just,
Yeah.
So.
Capital of centenarians. That's really what probably happened. There's just so many people who are immunocompromised due to just age.
Absolutely. And then we started to get the rush of people from the senior centers and in the skilled nursing facilities, and everyone's just in their 80s, 90s, 70s, and they all just they come in, they have dementia, they have all these other issues, and it's just like, dude, when you have someone locked into a room and they have dementia and they don't know that they need to stay in there, they walk up to the door and they try to open it, and then they could infect everybody. Right. And we're dealing with that
that's
all
just
day
it.
long.
Right now, the dementia clients that we have aren't coming in yet. They just don't feel safe enough.
Yeah.
And and I don't blame them, because how are you gonna get somebody with dementia to keep a mask on?
Absolutely.
Or to not touch their face or mouth, or to make sure they wash their hands. It's really hard to manage that.
It's too much to ask.
Yeah.
And it's not fair. So you have to take other measures in order to help that and help everybody else's safety too. Yeah. But within the bad there is the good.
Right.
So finally getting some of these people out of there. And you've seen like the celebrations online of people lining up and clapping and everything.
Right.
Some of these people were in there for 2 months. I had this lady
with COVID.
With COVID. Oh yeah. So some of the most like usually it's 4 weeks or 2 weeks. 2 weeks is the average, but like in severe cases, 3 to 6.
What was the most common treatment you guys were using to help people get over it?
So we used the hydrochlorothiazide and azithromycin combination, antiviral, antibacterial.
That's funny because, not to be controversial, because that's kind of something people are really, like, promoting, and then other people are like, F you, this is bullshit.
Right.
What's from a professional standpoint, or somebody who's
Yeah.
actually dealt with it, what's your take on using hydrochloroquine and zinc and I mean, is that something that you see in common practice in real life?
So we have pretty much stopped using it because it wasn't really effective, and
Yeah.
the doctors are like, I don't know why I'm giving this stuff. I just
Right.
have to. And then there's studies that are done that just say that it's basically ineffective.
Okay.
So they had to find other measures. So now they're using plasma
Mm.
from people that have beat it, who have the antibodies.
Oh,
And now we're giving that plasma to people who have more of the severe cases.
gotcha.
And that's doing a good job.
Okay.
Mhm.
What exactly is plasma? I'm thinking of
yeah.
I'm thinking of video games at this point.
Yeah.
So it's usually a glowing green substance that comes out of a machine gun,
And it
if you're
melts your
yeah,
face.
you can shoot it from a spaceship at other spaceships. That's usually
Typically, that's where it's found. So plasma is...
it's found in the blood. I know that, but
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like what makes up like a lot of your blood. So like, I don't know if you've ever seen like a centrifuge do its thing where it separates all the different layers of like blood. So
Is it like a catalyst?
So like that. So it's kind of like the media that the red blood cells, white blood cells, platelets, and all these things, clotting, factor will go into the plasma, and the plasma is kind of like the water that kind of goes.
And so,
through.
how do they use that to treat COVID? Is it just
So it carries the antibodies. It carries the proteins that can help fight it.
Okay.
So some people are more capable of doing that for whatever reason. And some people, they think it's blood type, something is genetics. I think like type O blood is more prone to be able to fight it.
Right.
So they'll take the people who that have overcome it.
That's so
they'll
strange.
transfuse some of their plasma out and then put it into other people.
And I gotta ask, and then I don't know if you know this, because that you just said the O-type blood is usually best, fights it the best. Now, why is that? What's the difference between O-type blood and any other type of blood?
It's a really good question. I'm not a hematologist, but
Yeah.
I know that there's definitely different factors within the blood that can.
Is O-type better at carrying nutrients and oxygen, or?
I'm not sure, but I know each one does have its own kind of benefits.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really the extent that I know about blood types, other than if you give the wrong person the wrong blood type, bad things happen.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting, and I think it's something that is being studied more. Because it's so new. There's so many studies that are happening, but it's like, what's the priority? What should we study first? And, who is going to get the funding to do that too?
Yeah.
Yeah. So right now it's like find a cure, create a vaccine, and then, distribute something that's going to be effective, because it's going to mutate like the flu, and it already has.
You think it is? Because that's one thing I wonder, as, I'm not a doctor, so I'm just putting it out there, questioning, spitballing, because again, being in the health industry, at least, you come into contact with so many different people. So many different people have so many different concerns. But I was wondering, what's the difference between the flu virus and a coronavirus? Because I understand that the coronavirus is a family of different viruses, right? And COVID-19 is a symptom, correct?
Sure, exactly.
So how is it that does, in other words, coronavirus of the COVID-19 type mutate? Does it mutate the same as the flu, or is it stagnant in its inability for humans to become immune to it, like the cold?
Right.
Isn't that the case with the cold? We just can't become immune to it. That's why you can kind of get it every year.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so is it?
So there's so many different strands.
Yeah.
And once you have one strand, you can't get that again, typically, because you have built up the antibodies to protect yourself. And that is for the average person, right?
Okay.
We'll say it that way. So if, COVID, the flu has, multiplied into mutated into a bunch of different things.
The
right?
flu?
Yeah, exactly. So if you look at the flu vaccine and you're like, maybe this was a down year for it being effective, it's because they can only put so much in there.
What's a vaccine typically, if I could cut you off? Yeah, what's it made out of?
So it can be made of dead version of the virus.
Okay.
So basically, when that is put into your body, it still recognizes the virus. It can also be like a very small amount of active virus.
Okay.
And the body, does its thing. It depends on the susceptibility of the person. So it's like, you're not going to give an immunocompromised person like an active virus.
Yeah. You probably want the weakest version you could possibly get.
Yeah.
Well, I've always
protect them too.
I've always wondered in the, because I'm like, I know people who are very anti-vaccination. I know people who are very pro-vaccination. I've had the luxury of working with radiologists and many different doctors over there at the New England Functional Fitness.
Yeah.
So I understand the purpose more, because you can, when you really get a professional's opinion on how a vaccine works and what it's used for, those immunizations can really mean the death of a virus long term, like polio and a lot of other things. Measles, I think, have been all cured because of a vaccine. But I wonder, in certain instances, like something that's interchanging, does a vaccine, one, make the flu stronger as time goes on? And do you think a vaccine for something that interchanges might compromise like your epigenetic system's ability to fight viruses on its own?
So typically with vaccines, with viruses, it's very hard not to get it when you have it, because they all have a level of virality, and that just means the likelihood of you getting it, right? So certain viruses have a higher level, certain, it's far lower. So your immune system definitely learns from these things, but I don't think that introducing them will diminish your immune system, and if anything, it will help support it. Right, it's still fighting it. It's still introduced to it, and the more vaccines increases greater herd immunity, and when you have something like herd immunity,
things won't spread.
Because everyone
has an immunity
is okay, right? And the more you have, then the less people are going to suffer.
True.
And then not only because these people are immune, but because they're not going to be spreading it to anybody else too.
Yeah.
When they travel. So, so I think that, the virality really kind of depends on, that. But
I was wondering, like, how a lot of the things that in the time that you've been working with it, how have they changed since the CDC has discovered more and more things, and obviously the industry as a whole, and you're part of that. What has changed since March, I guess, right? That's kind of when it really hit us.
Yeah, blew up.
Has changed as far as like precautionary measures and protocol for treating somebody with COVID or working with somebody with COVID.
So now that we understand it more, there's much less fear, even though it's still, just as, spreads as easily as wildfire.
Right. Is there any you think there's any herd immunity at all yet, or like are people at all immune to it after they've survived it, do you think?
Yeah, but when it mutates and it creates new strands, that's when you can get it again.
Oh, okay, I gotcha.
Yeah. So that's why it's really important to get it done now.
Right.
Because the more it mutates, the more likely is that you're going to get it again, and you're going to get a different strand, and then it builds up like the flu, and it's like, how do you stop the flu? It's like, realistically, you can't unless you shut everything down and everyone was isolated for a very long time.
Yeah, and from what I hear, like, it has a completely different form of existence, or at least a much stronger form of existence indoors than outdoors. Is there a big difference there?
For COVID?
Yeah. Like, are you more likely to catch it inside than outside? That's what, like, some people are saying. I'm obviously listening to so many podcasts from different people saying.
Yeah, I'd say that's true with just about any virus. That's why people don't get the cold because it's cold outside. Right. It's cold season because they're shutting the windows. They're not airing out the house. People are congregating into smaller spaces and cranking up circulated air.
And the cold too, doesn't it have an effect on just your sinuses? Like, you're more likely in the winter to have a runny nose or something like that due to condensation in your body, or how does that work? You know what I mean? Like, in the winter, usually everybody kind of has some runny fluids going on.
Yeah.
Do you think that's correlated to the cold? It's like just being a low temperature outside, or is that like is that just a wife's tail,
Yeah,
a tall tail.
I think, I think as far as the runny nose goes, a lot of people will get it because it's also, you're also indoors, and any indoor allergies,
Nah, yeah, that's it.
are also,
Mold.
yeah,
That's a big
and you're
part.
locked in with it.
A lot of people are allergic to certain fungus, and most funguses
Yeah.
grow in cold, dark places. So
And your own pet
yeah,
sometimes.
that too.
Yeah. And then, even the heat blasting and everything too, sometimes the body just kind of overproduces just to kind of compensate. Yeah.
And then, of course, UV light from the sun usually kills a lot of germs. Is that true? Yeah.
It does. Yeah. And as far as like the COVID goes, they're like, hopefully, the sun would help to kill it. Or so it's UVC light, which helps to kill it. And that is what we've been using in the hospital to disinfect, hallways and rooms and everything after it's been, so it's really interesting. But like as far as temperature goes, you would have to heat something down. I think it's like 135 degrees Fahrenheit in order to kill it. So
it really is too bad how things developed, sort of paralleling the political state of things. You know what I mean? Because
that's driven this.
It's made it the worst. I think because nobody wants to listen, and then other people are saying things, and then you have people like Trump who probably aren't qualified to talk about treatment methods, and then he's saying things, and then people are like, oh, what the hell? So he starts talking about using light
bleach.
and stuff, and bleach, disinfectant.
What if we inject bleach into our
well,
veins?
it was funny because like when he was talking about the light thing, people were very dismissive, like, what the hell are you talking about? To
go
the point,
tanning.
right?
Go tanning.
To the point where like a biotech company starts mentioning it, and then they get censored on Twitter for it when they're like, no. He put it terribly.
Yeah.
But there is methods
usual.
of light you can use to disinfect things. So I'm sure those precautions are really used quite frequently now.
Yeah.
And you're COVID negative right now, too. How often do you get tested as a nurse?
You don't. It's all on your own.
Oh, you do. You can just do it whenever you want?
Yeah.
No kidding.
Well, I mean, not really. I mean, it's kind of like everybody else.
Yeah.
You just gotta. I mean, I
work
would say
there.
that I know more opportunities to do it than most people, which is
not only
too
that,
bad.
but
like people should be able to know and be able to have it accessible to them.
Well, there's a stigma going to the hospital. Like nobody wants to go to the hospital because that's a ground zero for it, really.
Right.
So who wants to really go? You're obviously a little number to that, and you know how to work those surroundings for yourself. So it's easier for you to kind of be like, okay, I can do this before or after work because I'm here anyways.
Dude, it's had such a ripple effect. Like we started seeing like patients coming in June, and like I usually would have like one or two people per month who was like withdrawing on drugs or alcohol, and I would have at least 2 a day because there's nothing else to do.
No, wait, hold up.
People would pick up new habits.
You would so during the shutdown, like people, you'd have to treat that many people. How many a day?
Skyrocketed. I'd say, I don't know, maybe I was just the lucky one, but I had at least 2 a day for like June.
That video that surfaced of the guy walking through his neighborhood, filming the recycle bins full of wine bottles.
It's causing some issues.
Yeah.
Some people are coming in, they don't know how to
Well, see,
handle
that's
it.
what I was trying to avoid. We were talking earlier and filling that gap and making the best of the time off because that's time is the most valuable thing in the world. And the last thing I wanted to do is, we'll say August comes around the corner and everything's sort of back in gear as much as it can be safely, of course. And I have nothing to talk about except so when it first happened. Don't get me wrong. I had a couple bottles of wine. I laid back for a week.
Like
I said, everything's shut down. Whatever.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I was one of the people who was lucky enough to be able to collect unemployment at the time, and that had the stimulus. So I'm not gonna hide that. But I'm hoping that they find a way, especially for people, nurses, doctors, anybody in the health industry who really had to deal with this right up front and personal. I mean, is there do you know of any type of financial, like, hazard pay that they're going to be giving you guys, or?
No.
To put it simply,
there was
that really is. That's so messed up.
Yeah.
That's so messed up. Because I mean, that you guys were the only people to deal with this.
Right. Yeah.
That's so crazy.
There's talks and talks and talks, and it's just it's it just kind of started fading out, and we were really trying to push stuff, but you can only do so much, and then you're just like,
Yeah.
all right,
Yeah. It's like, hey, you know what you signed
yeah.
up for.
And hey, like I'm alive, I'm good, I'm healthy. I didn't give it to my family. There's like one thing just to kind of really set the reason why we need to get rid of this thing.
Yeah.
I had two patients, and husband and wife, and they came in together, and only one came out. And
wow,
they can't be in the same room together.
Yeah.
Been together for 70 years.
Well, that was the scary thing. You get it, and if it's something that ends up killing you, you're essentially dying alone, which is extremely untraditional, considering usually the family can be there.
You're in a room for at least 2 weeks, and
yeah,
you find out your significant other of 70 years is gone, and you're in isolation.
Did you have to break that news?
And that's when you deal with it.
To people?
I had to break it to some people, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Jeez, dude.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So that's that's the reality. That's the hard part. But it's something that can be prevented.
Yeah.
And just got to be smart about it.
It's part of the job too. I mean, are
Yeah,
you in the ICU at all?
No, but we pretty much transformed into what's called a step-down ICU, which is kind of like a midway between the two.
Okay.
So very high intensive care, doing stuff that is something that we're not used to doing. I mean, you get someone who is basically hooked up to every machine and monitor that you can imagine.
Yeah.
And then you have a few of those people. Sometimes you have 4 or 5 of them, and it's heavy workload.
Was it ever that the forms of treatment were the cause of death? Do you know of any instances where, were you guys using ventilators a lot? I do remember hearing about how sometimes the ventilators weren't as effective as they were hoped to be,
right?
Or they were compromising people's pulmonary ability, to breathe.
Sure, on their own.
Yeah, on their own.
Yeah, and sometimes people have a really hard time getting off of those and having it natural system restart. So ventilators were strictly for ICU, but we would have different types of oxygen masks that they would have to use, basically what we have been doing for the last couple months is proning, and you've probably heard about this. It's been on the news, and it's just laying on your stomach.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I haven't heard about that.
Yeah, it goes from internet fad of 2000.
Oh, planking.
Planking basically to.
They were telling us something after all.
Right. To now, it was like a great treatment.
Yeah.
So proning, planking, pretty
now,
much the same
what's the
thing.
Science in that? Is it just have to do with the fluids from?
It's the physiology of the lungs. If you lay on your back, your lungs, gravity just kind of pulls them more close a little bit, because they always come from front to back.
Right.
So if you're laying on your stomach, the way everything is just set, it helps to open up that airway, that upper airway, a little bit more, and then it's less congested. All those air pockets that are getting smothered in this, film from COVID, are able to open up and breathe a little bit better.
Wow.
Yeah,
just from laying on your stomach.
They found it to be more effective than ventilators.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Well, that's got to be convenient as hell. Because
Yeah,
I've seen diagrams of how is the application process of a ventilator. I mean, that must be pretty rough to have to apply that to somebody.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Versus just, hey, flip over.
Dude,
that must have been such a relief.
You gotta, it's kind of a brutal undertaking.
Yeah.
Yeah, but dude, you just lay on your stomach.
And for those of you who don't know how a ventilator is applied, it's worth a Google search as well. It's pretty invasive. It's
extraordinarily.
You become half man, half machine. It's pretty much like giving somebody an iron lung, right? I mean, they pretty much.
Yeah, you shove a
tube,
a giant piece of metal down your throat, pulls your tongue back, and then puts a tube down so a machine can breathe for you.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and then think about being on that, and you know, you're not able to do that on your own, which is just kind of mind-blowing. A lot of people start to have psychosis from it. It's a big side effect.
What's psychosis?
So like acute, delirium, basically.
Okay. Yeah.
So just kind of being completely disoriented. You may not know the time.
Just from using a ventilator?
It could be from the ventilator, because it could be just a change in your body's function, something it's not used to doing.
Because breathing is a passive ability. You just do it. You don't even think about it.
Exactly. So, and you know, anything that's autonomic, and then, you know, you're not in control of it anymore, that's going to be a weird stress for your body.
I was going to say, that would be bizarre.
Dude, even like, I mean, the isolation in a hospital, the change in nutrition, because, I mean, we all tend to eat the same things.
Yeah.
So a big switch in nutrition day in and day
and
out.
That's something, that's actually a really good point, because for us young folks, it's not as apparent. But as soon as you start getting older, and obviously a lot of the people who are affected by COVID-19 were of the older population, right? Mm-hmm. Changing your diet is a big, it can be detrimental. It can mess you up. And that's one thing a lot of doctors have expressed to me, just through working with them, because they'll ask, you know, as a personal trainer, you've been there, people ask you about basic dietary advice, and you always have to advise them to go at their own precaution, because you can't really just give them that kind of information like a professional, right?
Everybody.
Right, exactly. So it's tough. They have to feel it out and understand that, you know, you probably don't want to make any massive changes to your diet, but yeah, that's got to be huge, because not only is the nutritional benefit of your own diet taken away from you, you now have probably, I mean, I don't know what hospital food is like. What's your take on hospital food?
I haven't tried it, and that's for good reason. People say the lasagna is good. I'm not going to go on
the space lasagna. Is it like add water?
It starts this small.
Yeah.
Just drop it. Yeah, man. I don't know. Like you go in and you change your diet that quickly. I mean, your entire like normal flora, your gut bacteria is based around what you eat, whether it's good or bad.
Gut flora alone too. Another thing, if you're listening and you haven't looked into how important the health of your gut flora is, or if you don't even know what gut flora is in general, look it up. Make sure you know, because I believe, and Jameson, you could correct me if I'm wrong here, you got the computer there, but it's kind of responsible for, I mean, the way you feel.
Mental health.
Absolutely. It's
they
everything.
Say it could be the number one, you know, provoker for anything.
And people take that for granted, I think, a lot, and they'll eat things that, I mean, you're somebody who's had to battle with that for a very long time, because you're gluten intolerant. What's celiac disease?
Right, yeah.
That's got to be rough. Even though I bust your balls about it all the time. I think everybody does, though. But you got a good sense of humor, so we're lucky.
13 years of it. I'm immune now.
I tell you, we're just here because Dan lets us live. If he wanted to start swinging with all the banter over the years, if Dan just came in on a bad day, if he just did a bad day, what's up, giraffe? And he just throws one. He just starts firing off.
No, I'm a gentle soul. Luckily for you guys.
Yeah. Yes. What's up?
Yeah, regarding the how your gut bacteria affects the health of your body, I'd say, judging by a couple quick Google searches and from what I know personally, it's very extensive. You know, affects your energy levels. It affects how you feel. You know, it affects how well you sleep. You know, everything.
It's an ecosystem.
Yeah.
And like all ecosystems, they have to be delicately preserved. Mm-hmm. So that means like making sure you're not eating things that are extremely processed too often, or making sure you're just something as simple as being hydrated. I mean, even keeping on top of the amount of fiber you're intaking is huge. So I mean, I wonder. Do you think there's room for improvement in hospitals and their food?
Oh, yeah, dude.
Because you would think that would be a really big priority. Because that's one thing I've never understood, that the health industry and we'll say the industry of medicine and I mean I don't know how you would divide the two, the nutritional and the health. Because I mean, obviously being a personal trainer and being a doctor, you're both sort of in a health-oriented industry, but there's a very big difference between what you're doing in huge ways.
Right.
But my point is, it doesn't seem like a lot of the basics are fundamentally applied.
No. And it's funny. I mean, a lot of nurses, it's not necessarily like nutritional health, but it's medicinal health. or stress management. Whereas like personal training, it's, how can I physically, help myself? And then same with nutrition.
But you would think from like a hospital setting, they would be giving you like Brussels sprouts and avocado, like things that are really good for you.
And realistically, no one's gonna eat. No one's gonna eat it.
Yeah, probably. Well, it depends. If you spice it up a little bit, put an M on it, maybe some.
So
it's from McDonald's. It's French fries, but they're like sweet potato fries.
Right. No, that's true. I mean, if it tasted better, sure, absolutely, people are gonna eat it, even if it doesn't. It's not up their alley. Mm-hmm. But in the end of the day, people ask for like the ready stuff. They're like, "Can I have some pudding? Ice cream?
Yeah.
Can I have ginger ale?"
They know what to expect when they walk into the hospital.
Right. That's probably it.
What were you gonna say?
Regarding the hospital food, I would say that it's probably a matter of budget, because I repair commercial kitchen equipment at many local hospitals and colleges and everything, and so I've worked on their equipment, seen what they have, and seen how they cook and produce food. Some of the wealthier hospitals like Bay State and Springfield and sort of Providence and Holyoke, they have better budgets, so they have better equipment. But then there's other hospitals that just, you can tell that they're not getting the funding. Their kitchen is understaffed, so they have like one person preparing meals for like 100 people, and it's just like, how can you make healthy meals at that at that level?
It's a similar juggling act to what schools have to go through.
Yeah.
Now, we were lucky because we went to a vocational school, so culinary was one of the shops. Oh. So we did get the benefit of an actual kitchen, though I also came from a sending school, and you could tell it was, the cheese sticks, something in a styrofoam cup. They call it chili.
Oh, dude, French toast sticks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you imagine that? We got cheese sticks for lunch.
Yeah.
That was it.
You
that
dipped
was
it
the
in
lunch.
some marinara sauce.
Yeah.
It was probably just ketchup.
With chocolate milk.
It was ketchup
dairy.
with zest.
It's dairy and ketchup.
Yeah,
Here's
it's pretty
your
much
lunch.
just dairy and ketchup all day, every day, like bread and milk.
Yeah. You want some butter?
They're wondering why kids are all fucked up and like depressed. They have no gut flora. Well, it's funny though. I will say, as a kid, you could kind of get away with eating anything a lot, and then just be like, I'm gonna go run and not sleep for 3 days.
Yeah, and you got plenty of time to make up for it.
Yeah.
But now it's like you get 2-3 days off and you're feeling it.
I was just having that conversation with Jameson actually, and how you can't get away with certain things anymore. You can't get away with not exercising. You can't get away with eating like shit. No. You can't get away with sleeping like shit. You kind of have to keep them all
in balance.
Otherwise, you start feeling like shit. Mm-hmm. And as we're approaching those. You're in the 30s. You're in the big 3-0. Are you exactly 3-0?
31.
31.
Yeah, 32 October.
As you approach those mid-20s, late 20s, I mean, at least in my experience, it becomes far more important to keep your diet in check. I mean, it's not something you should ever sleep on or something you should ignore, because it can change not only the way you feel, but your performance in every way. Mm-hmm. It's tough because you see people complaining about their lifestyles, but they don't really want to try to change it.
No.
Or they'll pass it off as somebody else's fault.
It's such
That's the worst.
We're lucky to have some of that education and the drive to do it, and we're around people that do it, aren't familiar with it.
We have a good network.
Yeah, exactly. And for people who don't have that, like, I can imagine it's not, it's not very easy to do that, but it's like the benefits. It's just, you can make yourself feel
way
amazing.
better just by slight changes. Like I talk about it. I probably said something about it every single episode, but just the implementation of drinking water more frequently.
Dude,
that's such an easy one.
Sometimes I feel like I need coffee at work, and I go and I have 2 cups of water.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's all I needed. That's it right there.
That's actually what we were talking about, the battle with caffeine. Such an addicting drug. Mm-hmm. Honestly, that's been one of the biggest things in this pandemic and the time that we've had off that I've been really working on or not working on. I've already accomplished it, because I had gone a month and change without a coffee. And I know that's not a really right. It's not a huge deal, but when you're drinking it every day for 2 years,
right, you're clean now. Ask
yourself those kinds of questions. Is this affecting me? Is this changing the quality of my sleep at all? Is this changing the quality of my appetite or ability to digest things? So you're constantly drinking a diuretic, essentially dehydrating you, and now on top of that, you're not drinking enough water.
Right.
And then you might not eat enough because it certainly curbs your hunger.
And it's a nasty feedback loop because you feel tired, and then you take in the coffee, you take in the caffeine, and then it lowers these levels in your blood, which build up throughout the day. And when they get to a certain threshold, that's what allows you to fall asleep.
Yep.
So the more you drink coffee, adenosine, yes.
Adenosine.
Exactly. Perfect. Thank you. I couldn't remember the name. And then once it builds up, then you fall asleep and you're in your natural cycle. But you throw off your natural cycle, and then you get more tired, and then you start to need that caffeine.
Yep.
To stay awake because
it becomes
that
a
cycle's
necessity.
totally off. Yeah.
It's funny because that's something I researched way back when we were working together.
Yep.
Was how that works, and the fact that caffeine has the same molecule shape as adenosine, so the receptor keeps getting met with caffeine, and that's when that overproduction of adenosine happens, and that's what makes you feel tired, like you were saying, throughout the day. And then all of a sudden, if you're not taking it, your body's overproducing it because it's never feeling like it's producing enough because the caffeine's taken over. And that's
a nasty game.
And that's how insomnia is born. I hate insomnia. Is the worst. I had that for like a straight month once. Like I really just wasn't sleeping, and the only reason is because I didn't catch on to that. I was still taking a pre-workout, going to work, and I'm like, why can't I sleep at night? Yeah. It's like slapping myself in the head. I'm like, what the hell is going on? It's crazy.
The pre-workout. I haven't done pre-workout in a few years because it just. Yeah. Oh, dude. Yeah.
I do a coffee if I want a little jolt.
Yeah. Or
Noons. Have you ever taken Noons?
No.
They sell them at Whole Foods. They're actually really nice. It's like comes in a little tube, similar to the way Airborne comes into a tube.
Yeah. Okay.
And they're tablets. They make them for all kinds of stuff, like helps you sleep. You can get one that's like magnesium and zinc complex with some electrolytes to keep you hydrated.
Yeah.
I drink one of those before I go to bed sometimes. Other ones that capitalize on immunity, like they have turmeric and just a bunch of good nutritious microbiotics and stuff like that. And then there's another one that I've been trying to. It's very low caffeine content. It's like a sport one, and has like green tea. Caffeine or something, because I guess there is a difference between how it's metabolized.
Sure, absolutely. And it affects everybody differently too.
Yeah.
So like something that I've been getting into recently, and I always see these commercials on like Instagram and Facebook, and I'm just like, oh, this is stupid. And, like this is just overblown. And then like
for pre-workouts,
free sample. So it's just beetroot powder.
Oh, no kidding.
And beetroot powder causes vasodilation because it helps increase your nitric oxide. And then boom, it's like work? Yeah.
No kidding.
Yeah,
I
kind of got
powder?
pissed off because I was like, oh, this stupid,
I know
guy
how long have you been
this
taking what the hell's the vasodilator? Oh, isn't it nitric oxide?
Nitric oxide is so it kind of enhances the use of it, and then boom, you get vasodilation, and you're ready to go, and it sustains.
That's crazy.
Yeah, dude.
Beet powder?
Yeah, but
I want to get some. Where'd you get it?
Like, Amazon.
Amazon?
Yeah.
I had to try just beet powder.
You get it tomorrow.
Yeah, I know you get it
overnight.
yesterday. Amazon has really been one of the heroes of quarantine. They've been up in their game.
Seriously,
anything's at your house.
Their shipping hasn't slowed down.
No,
that's insane.
I think it's gotten faster. To be completely honest with you,
it's the first single day. So it's like they'll good nitric oxide booster, good antioxidants, anti-inflammatory, and they put in like dried pomegranate, so it tastes like that rather than beets. Because
beets don't taste too good.
No, dude, I don't eat them. They're good for you, though.
Yeah, they are good for you.
Yeah.
As Dwight Schrute might know. Now, okay, so we were just talking about like COVID, and I wanted to sort of wrap up the conversation there because I wanted to bring it to like a happier place if we could. Like in your experience with it and working in these last 3-4 months. Has things gotten better in any way? Where's the bright side?
Absolutely. So we went from, our hospital has almost 1,000 beds, and our floor has about 50 of them, and we were completely full. And now, I'd say we have five patients
with it
at any given time.
How much was that most? Did you have again?
We filled all the beds, but not necessarily all the rooms were, because some rooms have two people in them. So I don't know. If we were to have 50 beds max capacity, we probably brought it down to like 30 or something.
Yeah.
So it'd be max capacity, and now there's only like 5, and all the other rooms are full, and they have double, people, and it's all withdrawal patients, and then people who have
That's
been putting
so
off
crazy.
people who have been putting off serious illnesses and conditions because they were afraid to come in.
See, that's the problem. I'm really upset with
it's a
how
mess.
a lot of things have conducted. So I don't care, like in the instance, you're somebody like myself at first did not want to wear a mask in a store, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact of how the media ended up making such a divide with this thing, it really sparked up so much controversy and fear. That's one thing that I heard. Like you were saying, there's a lot of people avoiding going to the hospital when they had things that they really needed to be treated at a hospital, and they were avoiding it completely. Now, how many of those people did you see of an influx? I mean, because I know it's a little bit more convincing now than it was obviously in March and prior. A little more convincing that it's okay to go outside, or go to establishments.
Yeah. So, I mean, per protocol, there's only a certain amount of places that we can like really go to without having to quarantine before we go back into the hospital. And most like there's only 13 states that I can go to right now.
Really?
Most of them are
because
the Northeast.
because you're a nurse.
Yeah. So that's why last week I was in Chicago.
You probably can go to more states though than the common man, though, right? Because I mean, isn't there a pretty big restriction on travel right now?
There is. And I think Massachusetts is putting one into place now. Which I snuck in before that happened.
Where'd you go?
So in Chicago.
That's right. How was Chicago?
That's beautiful, dude.
No kidding. What was the city like?
I never thought it was never.
Guys eating pizza in Chicago.
It was never like on my list. It was never
Yeah.
high on my list, but I'd go back again in a second, especially when it's full blown. They're in phase 4.
It looked beautiful.
They're in phase 4. It is, dude. It's beautiful.
So they have it really.
And it's so easy to get around anywhere.
Oh, cool.
Like there's some things I can't stand about going to New York. I would go to Chicago because it's just easy to navigate.
No kidding.
Yeah.
It was a lot easier to get around. New York's a bigger city. That's probably why.
It's right. Exactly.
Yeah.
It's vast.
Yeah.
And yeah, dude, it's just a lot of fun. The energy's great. It was so hard to leave.
Did you go by yourself?
Yeah.
No kidding.
Yeah, it was great.
No way. What no.
No. It was a good time to go. It's a good time to be by myself, man.
Nice. That's awesome. That's awesome. All right. Well, that's good. Traveling. I've heard good things about Chicago. It's great. Did you fly?
I did.
How awesome was the flying experience?
Dude, it was so you have like every other seat is full.
Oh yeah.
And they like wipe down all your seats and they give you hand sanitizer.
So there was traffic. There was people, in other words.
Yeah.
Because I went to Arizona in April.
Full capacity.
When I went to Arizona in April, I went to Sedona.
Yeah, Sedona, dude. It was,
beautiful.
Videos are amazing.
You saw them?
Yeah,
oh,
dude,
cool,
it's
man.
on my list now.
Yeah. Well, anyways.
It's a forbidden state, unfortunately.
Yes, now it is. Though I will say that when I went, there was like nobody there. I think there was, if I counted correctly, I think there was 8 people on the plane or something like that.
Wow.
And the airport completely
That's
empty.
great.
Best flying experience of my life, by the way.
Yeah.
Best flying experience of my life. Not recommended probably for all, but hey, here I
Yeah.
am rocking like a hurricane still.
Yeah.
But it was easy because I went there to go hiking. In a time like this, if you were to travel somewhere far, especially in a state maybe that's a little bit more infected at this time,
Yeah.
and then go to a city on top of it, it's another thing. But out there in Sedona, it's a small town. I think they have a population of like 11,000. It's a very small town.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And you're just hiking. We're just hiking like crazy. I just doing 10 miles a day.
There's more animals than people.
So what is that? So that's another thing I was wondering as far as how certain places are escalating and how the the count as far as the case count versus like the death count, because obviously is the death count going down? I mean, what is your end of this? Because obviously for me, I can, I got, all I really have is like CDC and, so, okay, not as many deaths, but obviously a lot more cases. What's the correlation? Because I was talking about this with Dakota. She was on a couple episodes ago, and obviously she's not a nurse, so.
Yeah. So we get emails from Department of Public Health from the state that we are licensed in. So I'm actually have a multi-licensure in Massachusetts and Connecticut. So I get it from both. And Connecticut's doing a a much better job at keeping the cases down and recovering from, the spikes. And they're doing possibly the best in the whole, United States. So Massachusetts was like the top 3 worst at its peak. But they're recovering very well now. However, the death rates in Mass and Connecticut are pretty high. I think it's around like 9.5%.
Oh, as far as the mortality rate?
Yeah, exactly. So it's almost 1 in 10.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the country, it's 3.5.
Yeah.
But
the CDC, why do they... Jameson, do you have the CDC pulled up? Were they was there like a mortality rate that they were saying was like 0.03? Now, is that like over every case in the world, or is that...
All right, now when you say the mortality rate of 0.03, there's a difference between a rate and percentage.
Right.
Okay.
A rate of 0.03 would be 30%. 0.03 is 3%.
Right.
Last I checked, the CDC statistics were between 4 and 5% death rate if you're confirmed positive.
Gotcha.
And then, there are people who like to extrapolate the data to the rest of the population with the, the certain theories out there of 80% of people walking around asymptomatic, which would lead to a death rate of under 1%.
Okay.
If that was the case, but that's all, we don't know that for sure.
So what are they saying about asymptomatic spread? Is it as common as they thought, or is it different now?
No, it's pretty common.
It's pretty common?
Yeah. I mean, it's still, I mean, I would say it's as common, if not possibly even more, because, I mean, it's still transmitted the same way.
Yeah.
The problem is that you don't know you have it.
Yeah. Well, that's the huge fear.
Yeah. So you have false insecurity, and others do around you too, because you look like a, healthy, walking, talking.
They were saying, well, like, why? So the World Health Organization was saying it's not as common. Is that like why would they say that? I know obviously there's a lot of mixed data.
Not as common to be spread
asymptomatically.
I
I don't know, like, because again, I was wondering what the shop talk is with you guys and how you guys kind of see it being transmitted.
Yeah.
Because you're the one dealing with it. At the end of the day, the rest of us are just sort of on Facebook, so which is not good. But that's why I'm asking.
Yeah. I mean, from what I've heard, it's it's just as likely.
Yeah.
But you're kind of the snake in the grass there. You can't see it coming, and it's gonna get you. It's gonna bite you just the same way.
Has the understanding of Here, finish your thoughts. Sorry.
Yeah. No. I think and also people who are positive and have the symptoms are more likely to be more focused on being responsible about it too. So it surprises me that they would say that, but I'm sure they have a good reason for it. That it's probably
well,
not
who knows?
to
It
me.
might be different country to country. I don't
Sure.
know. That's why I'm asking, because it obviously, thank goodness, I don't have to deal with this on a professional level by any means. Though, the next question I wanted to ask too: how has things changed as far as the understanding of how it spreads from surfaces? Because I know there was one set of data in the beginning, and then it's slightly changed now. Is that?
Yeah. Originally, they were saying that it could live for 12 hours or something on
like
on
metal.
solid. Yeah, exactly. And then it could transmit very easily. But now it looks like they say that they're not giving a percentage, or they're just saying yes, it could live on there for that long, but it doesn't, the virality of it isn't very high.
Okay.
So you're not as likely to get it. You're much more likely at making contact with somebody, being near somebody, not wearing a mask, or breaking that kind of 6-foot rule.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you would have to touch it, and there would have to be enough, of the virus on you to actually, kind of transmit and fully make it in and survive, and then infect you.
Okay.
So, it builds, as it goes into your body, it starts replicating.
Right.
And if there's nothing there to stop the replication, then you're going to get infected.
How is the death of somebody assessed when they die of something else but had COVID. Now,
Yeah.
like, is that a big one? Is that a big?
Yeah.
I know that's a pretty controversial like understanding, because obviously somebody could die of something else but have the COVID-19 and the.
Right.
How did you guys break that down?
So I mean, so you got to look at it and say like, okay, are we going to do an autopsy on this person?
Yeah.
And find out what the real cause of death was, or they had COVID and they died.
Yeah.
So they could have died from, anything. Anything else that was going on. It could have been like a secondary infection or something. So I mean, you could do an autopsy, but
Right.
that body is still contagious.
Yeah.
And I think like 100
That's so
years
true.
ago,
Yeah.
with the Spanish flu,
Yeah.
they like cremated almost everybody who died.
They
with
just
it.
threw them in a fire.
They tried to, yeah.
Oh my God.
Or throw them in the water.
This is barbaric.
Because
Holy shit.
people were cutting them open to try to learn about it.
Yeah,
And they were
getting
all
sick.
getting it and dying.
Oh.
So
What is the Spanish? That's H1N1? No, that's the swine flu.
Yeah, right. So it was, I think it was I don't know if it was a SARS or what.
Yeah.
Dude,
That's crazy, because I always wonder how different the numbers would look if we knew better what was making people die. Because
Yeah.
I mean, the Earth and
it'd be
humans
so much
are
more accurate.
yeah. Because I mean, death
Sure.
is occurring on a daily basis in all kinds of different ways, and it's one of those things that has a big shock factor when you're learning about how many people dying, and I always felt bad thinking about how much of that affects that traffic in your end in the hospital, and people probably rushing in there because of that level of fear, because people don't
Allergies.
understand, right?
It happened during allergy
That's what I'm
season.
saying. That's what I'm saying. So like so all of a sudden on the TV you're hearing about hundreds or tens of thousands of people dying at the time, and then now on hundreds of thousands and closer into the millions.
Yeah.
It's difficult to fathom that people die at that kind of rate, and it's much higher than that, because we're just talking about COVID, never mind everything else.
Sure.
And so people get skittish at that point.
It really muddies the waters.
Yeah.
And I think some states like I want to say Georgia was kind of caught doing that, trying to like fudge the numbers a little bit so it would look it would look more in their favor. And it helps. It's income for the state, right?
Right.
I mean, you have tourism and you're able to withstand opening phases, and like your numbers are staying low. It's gonna help your state.
True.
But again,
Yeah, there's a public
political
health
side
issue
of
at hand.
things.
Yeah. But then there's the case
greater
too.
good.
Was there, now I don't know if this was effective in your hospital. This is again another thing that I heard. I didn't do extensive research on it at all. So I'm just spitballing again. Were there also hospitals doing kind of the opposite? We're saying there were more people than actually were dying of COVID, just to help them out from a financial standpoint because of funding that was given to hospitals who had to deal with a lot of COVID.
It's possible. I think,
Considering just how many people were furloughed, was there? I mean, I'm sure most of the staff where you worked was probably just working the whole time, considering
yes. So
the Northeast was kind of hit.
Yeah, I mean, we had some bumps. We had like I think one whole unit that was not COVID positive unit went down, and about 50% of the staff
Got furloughed?
they got COVID.
Oh my God. Okay.
Because it was supposed to be a clean area.
Yeah.
And asymptomatic people
Yep.
came in. I have heard of issues, not like locally, but I've heard of issues where hospitals would increase the numbers, doctors would increase the numbers because it did benefit their income as far as, prescribing certain medications and, treating certain different patients. They would say like, well, they died of COVID, and
It sucks how it's so tied into like a financial thing like that.
Yeah, dude. You just can't fight greed. You can't fight politics. And
Well, that's one thing. A lot of people seem like they pretend like it can be fixed. You know what I mean? And so many other different terrible qualities that humans have. And that's kind of what the country's going through a lot right now, is people want certain things to be gone, and you can't you can't change how people think, and you can't change just the human nature. The condition of human nature is just so flawed in so many ways. But that's super interesting. And it's awesome to have had somebody come on and talk about it. Because, again, there's only so many, and the people that I used to talk to about these kinds of things, obviously, a lot of doctors now in their retired years, 70 plus, they're obviously not coming in yet. So I don't get to pick their brain about it where I would have before.
Yeah.
Because a lot of them were pediatricians and endocrinologists. No, actually, it was a radiologist. But, I mean...
It's hard for people to get help right now. Just, urgent care centers or just family practitioners, because those places are closed down. And I know there's a local like, medical group that has like 6 branches and only one of them is open. So that place is getting the influx of all the other patients, and they're getting all their phone calls from all these people. And it's like, you can't go in there. It's just, there's a waiting list just to receive a message on your phone for like a couple of weeks. It's crazy, and that's I would say that's less safety, and that is more greed to have those things open.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah. So I think an important thing from all of this is a lot of people didn't get to see their loved ones.
That was scary. I mean, like we had mentioned earlier, that's got to suck so bad. Out of all the things that could happen, to then go in alone and then be alone
and you don't know how it's going to end for you or your family. And so we got an iPad, and we were doing Zoom calls with people's families. Yeah. And dude, like, sometimes you're in that room for 45 minutes, gowned up and just pouring sweat with a positive patient, and you're holding that there just for them because they can't hold it, and maybe that person can't even speak, but that family is so grateful just to be able to see them, talk to them, know that they can hear them. So, I mean, and there's a lot of people who were in isolation that were just like, I don't know if I'm going to make it out of here or not. I can use the phone and whatever and talk to my family, but it was always basically came down to the same regrets, and it was just to reflect, spend more time reflecting, because these people in isolation, that's all they can do. So, take some time, take a weekend, with friends, take a weekend with family, take a weekend by yourself. Think about your relationships, think about the good, think about the bad. And every garden that we cultivate and grow and make to look, beautiful and manicured, is going to grow weeds. Right. And if you don't, weed your garden. Yeah. If you don't pull those weeds out, they're going to grow 4 feet tall, get stuck in your central air unit,
take over the house one day.
and then your summer's effed up because you're you don't have any more AC. But then just weed the garden, reflect, and make sure that you keep those relationships healthy with those important people.
Yeah, I know, that's huge. That's huge. That's such a big thing for anybody. You never know who really needs you to reach out to them and stuff like that. And in all regards.
A lot of people aren't open to asking either.
No, or receiving. You know what I mean? You can run into. I mean, we all probably have run into friends of ours who, have trouble voicing their problems or dealing with them, or not dealing with them, but talking about them with people, because that can be something you could just tuck down and try to be an individual about, and just
right.
Really quick before we go off that topic too, I was thinking, I lost the thought completely, but now I got it back. What were some like unanimous qualities that everybody who was really severely infected had? Was there a lot of people with the same types of conditions that were getting affected, or was it kind of just anybody and everybody?
So you mean population?
Yeah, population-wise, I guess I'm wondering, like, were they wildly unhealthy in the first place, or?
I had one person who had diabetes and heart failure, 90 years old, and they had the flu A, which is dangerous, H1N1.
No way.
And then COVID, and they were in the hospital for like.
How do you get H1N1? Traveling?
I don't know where she got it from. Like she got that trifecta, and she hit the triple crown of like respiratory viruses.
Ugh.
And
I wonder what JD's been up to.
90 years old and made it out like that.
Wow.
Yeah. Totally
Holy
fine.
shit.
But it's all, it hits anybody and everybody. Yes, it hits primarily immunocompromised and more older people.
Yeah.
But symptoms can range because it's mutated. A really common symptom now is GI distress. Yeah, respiratory issues and GI distress.
Kidding.
Yeah, nausea, vomiting, all that.
Wow.
Happy stuff. Yeah.
That's wild. That's wild. I wanted to actually, too, I should have asked you in the beginning, but I would like to talk about your collegiate experience with becoming a nurse, too, because where'd you go to college?
Yeah. Mass College of Pharmacy and Health Sciences.
No kidding. Okay.
Yeah. So there's Worcester campus and Boston. Yeah, in Manchester, New Hampshire. Yeah,
Wow.
So I went
How long was the schooling for it? What do you have? What's your degree?
So it's BSN, Bachelor's in Nursing and Science, or Bachelor's of Science in Nursing, and second bachelor's, it took 16 months. So you have to have a Bachelor's of Science previously, which I have in exercise physiology. And then from that, I had a lot of courses crossing over into nursing.
Yep.
So that kind of stimulated some.
All the while being
some
a personal
interest.
trainer.
Yes, exactly.
You're probably
And
still
then-
on the books there, right?
Oh yeah. Well, so I'm doing Zoom training now.
Okay, no kidding. All right.
Yeah.
Die hard. You'll never stop.
I can't, dude, it's too much of a passion. But I have people. I'm like, I can't feel good about this unless I can see everything that's happened. So I have somebody have a Zoom on their phone and then Zoom on their laptop, so I can see someone at two angles at all times.
Oh, no kidding.
To help their movement patterns.
Yeah, that's tough because I've done obviously in the time a couple of video workouts, and that's actually a really smart idea.
Yeah, they have to use two different email
devices.
accounts.
Okay.
Yep. But it works great.
That'll get you every view you need to make sure they're doing the movements right, and that's kind of the most important part.
Absolutely.
No kidding.
Yeah,
that's
dude.
awesome. Are you thinking of becoming a doctor or progressing your education?
So the next step. I've definitely thought about it. I've thought about it a lot, and getting out of that intense schooling, it's crazy what they have you do. I need a break. So I'm getting the handle on this gig.
Yeah.
And I'd love to. I
always
always like learning,
you're
dude.
Crazy dude for being a nurse.
Dude.
I didn't realize it till kind of like after we left the last place. I left the last place we worked, and moving on, working with some nurses, just training them, and holy crap.
Yeah, dude.
Like the amount of just leg work.
Yeah.
And then there's obviously the techie stuff, all the know-how and understanding, because you got to kind of be on the same page as the doctor. You see the patient probably more than the doctor.
Way more. The doctor typically sees them maybe like 15 minutes a day.
Pulls on the IV. All right. See you next week.
They don't touch that stuff. No. They're a little nervous about it.
They flick the bag. Looks good. Looks good.
Yeah, dude. I mean, you gotta know your stuff, and like I feel that we were over prepared with schooling, which is great because you have to know more than what you're doing in order to converse with any specialist or doctor or whomever you're
because you're kind of a jack of all trades as a nurse, because
you're the advocate. You're everything.
You could be a nurse for anybody if you're working with a cancer patient when you're working, right? That's crazy.
Absolutely. Yeah, dude.
And they have to cover all that, so nursing school might be more encompassing.
Crazy.
Because typically doctors also are specialists, and there's no like specific. I mean, right?
Yeah.
Most doctors are either like pediatrics or geriatrics.
So you learn like the general stuff, and then you kind of break off into your specialty.
Yeah.
And then like for us, it's kind of like the same. It's like we would branch off and go into a specialty. Mm-hmm. And so like the next step for me would be what's called an advanced practice nurse, APRN, like nurse practitioner, because you can prescribe medications and you are that patient's provider. So PA, nurse practitioner, they're pretty similar in their responsibilities. You just have a lot of flexibility as a nurse because you can jump around to
right. Flexibility.
Oh, that's great.
As far as diversity goes, probably not as free time goes.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
You're like pretty much worked to the bone the whole time.
Yeah, dude.
Is the place light still bothering you? I know that was a big thing you were doing.
It was. I invested
was a big thing you were doing.
It was. I invested in blue light glasses.
Oh, do they work?
It made a huge difference.
Dude, nice.
Yeah, dude.
I try wearing those when I'm, especially during the fall.
Yeah.
Like when I'm on the computer or like watching TV, I'll wear those before like bed.
Yeah.
Or, because the sun goes down. Yeah. Because of daylight savings around like 4.
And a lot of phones now and laptops have the filters, the blue light filters automatically. Like use those things.
Yeah.
Because it's going to save you a headache.
Big time. It helps you sleep sooner.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude. Man. Anything else new with your life? I mean, pretty much just working straight through.
Working less now.
How come you went to Chicago? Just to kind of, did you just have a week off or something and went for it?
Yeah. So week off. So this was the week of my wedding.
This was?
Yeah.
Did you do anything specific? I mean, besides that, or?
So I wanted to do something. I wanted to do something I hadn't done before. And it's not road tripping down the West Coast or going to Hawaii or something like that. Yeah. But dude, I had a blast. Dude,
nice.
It was a great time.
Dude, it's liberating just going out. I was very happy that I got the opportunity to go out to Arizona and explore. Because I've always kind of wanted to live out. I had this idea of going out there and moving out there one day. Mm-hmm. And going out there to visit really confirmed a lot of things that I had hoped for.
How is the climate?
It's amazing.
That's what amazing. I hear. And that's like the biggest draw to me because I get such bad seasonal allergies.
Oh, same. Seasonal. Well, I had seasonal depression. Like winter kills me. Yeah. But man, it's amazing. Every day was sunny. Yeah. You get clouds a little bit, and it's very dry, so you don't get that heat from the humidity that you would get here. Yeah. Though I will say I was there in the spring, and so people were saying the spring is when it's really nice because I could imagine it gets really, really hot.
Sure.
But you're also like above 5,000. Right. You're 5,000 feet altitude though. Like that's how high up Sedona is. So you're in like the high desert. Like you go down to Phoenix, you're not that high up. And like when I was in Phoenix in April, it was like 103 degrees.
Wow.
Yeah, when I landed, it was like 97. But it's dry. That's where like a breeze can change the day, which was a cool feature about it. Like, wow, I remember checking the temperature one night. I was watching the sun go down, and it's like 86 degrees, but it doesn't feel like it when you got that nice dry breeze. More of a comfortable
environment for it.
Super
it's
comfortable.
Not wet and sloppy like it has been the last couple of days.
So what's your take before we'll wrap this up? But I want to get your take really quick on how you think, like, there's a lot of people saying we're opening up the country too soon or we need more time. How do you think this is all going to come to an end? Do you think it's going to need a vaccine or a means of treatment that's effective? Because it seems like, do you think it might be overboard to treat it with a vaccine, or do you think a vaccine is completely appropriate for something like this?
I think it's going to have to be.
Yeah.
And I think it's the same reason as kind of what we touched on before. It's if we want to stop this from obviously spreading, but if we want to build up that herd immunity and stop the mutations or slow them down, people have to be immune to it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, if it mutates and it gets out of hand, and some strands aren't going to be as strong, but you can't take that risk. So I would say, at this point, it would have to be a vaccine. It's too bad that we.
How much longer you think? Like I know there's a lot of study on it, but
yeah. So typically, when a drug is completed and it's ready for trials, it takes 5 years before it can be, admitted for public distribution. Mm-hmm. They're not going to do that with this. They can't afford to.
They'll just put it into the system.
Yeah. So how many people are going to have that first round?
God, I hope they don't make it mandatory.
They're going to be. Those people are going to be basically test subjects voluntarily, as long as it's not mandatory.
Yeah.
But I think that's the only way, because at this point, I mean, sure, we can kind of, it can retreat back and we can keep up with social distancing, but, things are still opening. Mm-hmm. And that's, not a bad thing, but it just hasn't been done responsibly. Connecticut's doing a fantastic job.
I think Mass is doing good too.
Mass is doing much better than they were.
Yeah.
In New York.
Yeah.
You could imagine New York could still be, the worst, and we would all agree, and that would be fine. That would be normal. But they're doing great. So, more people need to be like the Northeast. Look at Maine. Like,
yeah,
they're doing fine. I think
it's all backcountry out there, anyways.
Yeah. Rhode Island's not having a good time.
No. Yeah, well, that's just it. Everywhere near the beach. I mean, Florida's having a tough time with it. I mean, a lot of those people are
California.
Right, they're not.
Texas.
Yeah. They don't want to let go of that lifestyle for even a little bit.
A lot of college kids too.
Yeah. Well, hopefully something comes about soon. I do look forward to people having their confidence to come back, because obviously there's all those repercussions. You know, like we were talking about, psychological repercussions from something like this. You know, there's a lot of people who are having a hard time because their lifestyle is so severely affected. The schools opening is another big hot topic. You know, should we not? You know, what do you think about that actually, real quick before?
I don't know.
It's so
I feel
weird.
So underqualified.
I know. It's
decision.
in one instance, I'm like really worried. Like, okay, because obviously there is a realistic amount of children who are relying on the school system for food and stuff, just as basic as that. And then there's obviously the social aspect of it, and then the educational aspect of it. Right. But then there's that health aspect where are we compromising people's health in opening it?
And it's limited classrooms too. So not even everyone's going to be able to get to go to the classroom.
True.
So they would have to like rotate away to have like more interactive days, like in the classroom, kind of like how you would go to science class and you would have like lab days where you do the hands-on stuff, and then you have like the study days where you have like lecture stuff.
Yeah.
So
I was going to say, I feel like they could make a strategy. I'm
sure
sure they could make a strategy for it, because, I mean, as far as what it seems like, children spreading it to people is not that common, is it? Like to anybody?
No.
Is it?
No, kids can. I mean, the good thing is that they're down here, so when they cough, it just goes into your knees.
It doesn't go up high. It doesn't get much. It doesn't get that airborne.
No, exactly. So that's the benefit of it. But they can spread it like anybody else.
Is it? Do kids get it just as much as anybody else, or is it much more unlikely for a kid to get it? Do you think, or at least as far as the patients you've seen, have a lot of them been under 10? Or 15?
So we don't do pediatrics on my floor.
True.
So,
that's right. That's a whole nother division.
It's a really good question.
Yeah.
I mean, we've had, I know, a couple floors below us is like in the neonatal area.
Yeah.
And I know there was like a two-week-old baby that had it.
Okay, yeah.
So it's like, I mean, they're
that's the
kind
thing.
of
Newborn babies
too.
are like constant. Like so many people that I've known who had a kid. Out of all of them, there is a good handful of them who've just chilled. You know, that first couple weeks is scary because
they're susceptible to everything.
Anything.
And it's really, that's why breastfeeding is really important, because antibodies go through the breast milk.
True.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, dude.
All right. Hour 17.
Ended on breast milk.
Breast milk's great. Fun fact. I think this is true. You could probably look it up, Jameson. Breast milk's the only thing that we can eat every day.
Oh, yeah.
As humans. Like, most people don't think about it. But
why isn't that mass produced?
I don't understand why. You would think there'd be some way to get it. Have like a factory of women who are...
Well, I eat bananas every day. Every day. I haven't missed them.
I'm talking about like if you only if you only ate bananas, but you notice your cat and your dog eat the same damn thing because you've probably been feeding them the same damn thing every single day.
Right.
But our brain needs so many different little micronutrients. I feel like we need that variety, but I've heard that breast milk is the one thing that you can eat every single day.
And you can get recently pregnant people, and they will keep producing as long as the demand is there.
Hey, that could be an industry of itself. I know.
And you get to eat like 500 more calories a day because of that.
Yeah, because
you've got to feed yourself and somebody else.
Oh, true.
So that would be a good reason for people
listen, call me. Seriously, though, I know.
Dude, we got a business plan.
Olympic athletes will do that, right? I heard that Olympic athletes will consume, like, on their training cycles, like, for just nutritional and recovery benefits, they'll consume breast milk. I've heard. I don't know if that's like a wives' tale or something, but
I would do it.
I would do it. Let's start it up. We'll make a few phone calls. You call your people. I'll call my people. We'll get a breast milk factory in no time.
There we go.
Did you find anything? No.
Dude, it's got to start somewhere.
It's got to start somewhere.
There's
powdered breast milk.
The population's growing. How do we take care of a population issue? We
Soylent
take
breast
the opportunity of it.
Yeah. Do you have too much breast milk? Call now.
They do. Pro athletes do it.
See? Boom.
Okay. Dude,
1 point.
Dude, we already got the richest people in the world as customers.
Yes.
Man, that dude reading my Google search at the NSAs.
Yeah. You're put on a list somewhere for that Google search. All right, Dan. Thank you so much for coming on, man. This was awesome.
It has been.
It was a pleasure. Do you want your Instagram or anything up here for people to check out? The crazy adventures of Dan. I don't know. I always like to advertise my friends, but check out his Instagram. He has actually a really awesome picture of him in Chicago, just loving it, having pizza and checking out the sights.
Yeah. You probably won't be. Oh well, my name would be posted with this.
Yeah.
So
you'll be on the website, the Instagram, but yeah, it'll be there. I guess for those of you who are listening, what would it be, Dan? It's just that Dan.
DJ Schmaelzle.
Yeah.
CHMAELZLE. But no, that Z is a 7. Yep. That's it.
And if that ain't complicated enough, I don't know what is. You should have just said Dan Schmaelzle. Just
you would have
try
got
your
it.
best.
Just trial and error.
All right, guys. See ya.